Good evening and welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name's Dave, and as always, we thank you for joining us. We are recording here on Thursday, the 18th of June, our SQUADS show, our preview show for this weekend's Port Adelaide match, of course, taking place in Melbourne at the MCG on Saturday evening on the 20th, 7:05 p.m. kick versus, I say kick, I'm in World Cup mode, throw up. Which is, we need to find a better term for that. We still say bounce, but I feel wrong saying.
Yeah. You're the only one that says throw up.
You're so right.
Anyway,
I'm
back into the background, Jamie.
Yes, good shit, Jamie. That was the perfect time to jump in and just say, David, there's a perfectly reasonable thing to say instead of throw up. Maybe I just drink too much piss on this podcast, and it's on my mind. But yes, we play Collingwood at the MCG on Saturday the 20th at 7:05 p.m. Ball up. I was about to say throw up again. A big match to come up. There's angles into talking about my hopes and dreams for this match, just because I want to beat Collingwood at the MCG for once, but we'll talk about that in a bit. The major news today, I'll go through the ins and outs of both teams. So just to briefly touch on Collingwood's before we get to ours, and then we can talk about those a bit. Collingwood have Ned Long still side bottom and Sam Swadling coming in for his first game. So there's a debutant on the Collingwood side. Angus Anderson has been omitted. Scott Pendlebury managed and Braden Maynard injured as well. On our side, we've got Josh Lai coming back in from concussion protocols, and Jack Lukosius gets his first match at the AFL level for a while, having been seemingly is going to be playing some wing time for us, which is going to be an intriguing one to talk about in a bit. The outs, Kane Farrell is injured again, and a point to start for the podcast discussion here tonight, Jamie, is Ollie Wines has been managed, and he's managed, which is just, what you do with your older players, but kind of adding a little bit more kind of broth to the soup was Chad Corns on Kimbo and Chad this afternoon talking about how Chad, this is just paraphrasing Chad's opinion, that he'd be surprised if Ollie Wines goes on beyond this year because apparently his his grumbly knee is just continuing to kind of deteriorate and cause him problems, and whether that's going to just mean that doesn't have another full AFL season in him, which would be quite sad considering how much we love Ollie. And we certainly earlier this year were raving about his kind of leadership and impact on that midfield group. But we're probably seeing, while he's still been playing some good footy, his time on ground's been getting less and less. And obviously we're seeing him manage now. It does maybe mean there's some smoke to the fire of the Chad Corns comments.
Yeah, hello to you and everyone else joining us for this episode. I hope everyone's had a good week so far. Listening to this from Friday onwards, depending on when you're tuning in. As I said to you pre-pod, I've had a pretty busy day, so I missed out on that little snippet, but saw some comments on social media regarding Ollie's knee, which, before I'd read them, I wasn't privy to them, but it makes a lot of sense as to why his minutes have been managed so precisely, because typically other players, if they're coming back from injury or they've started off slow at the start of the season, maybe their minutes will be managed and then they'll slowly go up like that to a full game. And it's just, as we've noted many times this season so far, it's never really gone above 65 to 70%. I think between 65 and 70 is the rare end of the ledger. It's generally, I think one thing, it wasn't something that we discussed really on the review podcast, probably because it went for so fucking long. So thanks for everyone tuning into that one. But yeah, just the fact that he played, 56% game time, but still had 23 disposals and went at a good clip as well. So if the rumor is true that his knee is in fact at a stage where he needs to consider retirement because it's bone on bone in the joint, then that's really disappointing. Ever since he won his Brownlow medal, I think the majority of those years he's been affected by an ailment in his body or which has either affected his preseason which has flowed on to the season after that. And yeah, I don't think he's really got to relish in his post Brownlow era because he's always seemingly started from a few steps back. And he's had a good couple of years prior to this year, and I still think that he's performing at a pretty darn good level considering those minutes that he is playing, the time on ground. So I guess, yeah, I feel a bit flat about that notion. Now, obviously, it is still just a rumor and an opinion on Chad Corn's behalf, but like you said, it does seem to be some smoke to the fire with him being managed and whatnot. But so we'll save not obituaries, but we'll save, reflection and reminiscing until that decision comes, if and when it comes. But for the time being, he's being managed. Fair enough. Unfortunately, the MCG might be a little bit wet on Saturday, so it's probably a game for an Ollie Wines type. But yeah, if we want him to at least play out the season, which may be his last season, then managing him is probably the right way to go. But yeah, it just sucks if that's to be the case, because us as Port Adelaide fans know the season that he had in 2021 and how ridiculously good it was and how deserving he was of that Brownlow medal. Just for in the years after that, for opposition fans to cast a negative light on the player that he is. Look, ultimately, not that really fucking matters to us or to me or to you. But I think just for Ollie and his AFL career, he's probably deserved to have a better go at it. And up to this point, it hasn't quite played out that way. But I still think that he's played some really good football and been a underrated contributor to our overall side. And yeah, I hope we get a lot more of that. I hope, yeah, there isn't as much smoke to the fire and we see a bit more. But yeah, for the time being, he's managed, and it's probably the right decision based on, yeah, what we know.
Yeah. Yeah, he's currently sitting on 283 games, so you'd love to see him have the opportunity to get one more year, maybe to just sneak past 300 for his career, which would be fully deserved for the 2021 Brownlow medalist. But yeah, we'll wait and see on it. It is just an interesting one to pop up on radio today, as I was kind of looking at the side that was being named as well, with Wines being managed. It's just, yeah, one to watch for the rest of the year. But he's certainly, when he's getting his chance, he's playing some decent footy. And my ultimate thing is, like, whenever the time comes, I just hope he retires a Port Adelaide player, like so many of our favourites from years past have.
I agree.
So this year or next year, whenever it comes, I want to, don't know. No letting him go for a little contract over interstate or anything like that. Obviously, if on the objective point of view, if that was to come to be, it would be just look at what the list management decision was and kind of figure it out. But I'd like to see him retire as a Port Adelaide player. And yeah, look, the news today is somewhat concerning, but yeah, let's maybe just have a positive outlook and hope it is still maybe next year. But it remains to be seen. And hope he enjoys his kind of week of being managed, and hopefully maybe a little bit fresher for the showdown in a week and a half. Obviously, we mentioned the other one, Kane Farrell's missing as well, as he works through groin tendon soreness. So he's clearly kind of, he's come back in last week, but he's battling a little bit of an ongoing kind of soft tissue thing there. So a concern, I guess, for the immediate term. But then it's just like, well, what is this, the macro of this season all mean anyway? So it is, managing a player like Farrell, who is going to be important for us over the next few years, is probably an important thing to make sure he doesn't do too much damage or anything like that. So, yeah, obviously provides the opportunity for Josh Lai to come back in, which we've obviously been impressed with his output as he plays in the back line. And so certainly happy to see him come back in. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of mix up the possessions coming out of the back half with Farrell out. But then, yeah, Lukosius comes in as well to play some wing, which he had 23 disposals, a goal, that kind of a decent high high possession performance there in the Maggies. So I guess that's a point to start. A few people have been mentioned being a bit perplexed by the side named overall, maybe with the weather in mind and such things. But I guess it's like who's going in and out for who. Otherwise, the names mentioned. I mean, I'm sure there's a few people around going, get Benny Barrett in finally, which I'd be okay with whenever that kind of occurs. But I think seniority, players that are ready to come back in and play AFL footy, Josh Lai being one of them, who's got his chance this year and deserves to come back in if he's ready to go. And Jack Lukosius does need to come back in and maybe play some footy if he is ready to go as well. So, and then obviously Farrell's injured and Ollie Wines is managed, which is managed because of ongoing, injury concerns, possibly. So, well, not possibly. We just know his body is needing to be managed. So, the ins and outs kind of make sense based on seniority and some things they're wanting to try to do as well. Maybe people are thinking, the Whitlock and Marshall dual thing. Maybe they're lucky to be back in, but then who, it's you're either just trying. I don't know who else you bring in. Like there is other options out there, but the realistic notion is that a lot of these players you want to keep seeing some continuity and see how they go. So I'm not as baffled and perplexed as some people have suggested on the internet. I've kind of gone, well, we're a rebuilding side. We're trying a couple of things, I think. And I'm kind of okay with that. Whilst I also do want to see us win against Collingwood at the G.
As do I, of course, because the last couple of games in particular have been fucking shite, particularly 2025's round one bloodbath. So yeah, off the top, Kane Farrell, that is a bit frustrating for him. Comes back for the one game. Maybe it was one of those touch and go things, and it was like you could contribute to a win potentially against gettable Sydney based on their injury list at the time, which we were again well informed through commentary on the night. But yeah, just a bit annoying. But facilitates the Josh Lai inclusion. We ruminated over that a little bit, and I put forward the notion of maybe giving him an extended rest, and that was provided that a backman didn't go out because Sand's injury, our backline was pretty solid, to be honest. So makes sense. I don't think there's too many complaints with that. And with Jack Lukosius, he deserves a good run at it. We need to see him have a good run at it because we're paying him pretty well. And the club has sights on him to be a major contributor in our team over the next 5 years in particular. So when I saw the teams, it didn't surprise me that Lukosius came back in, but I just kind of did the old, Whitlock and Marshall are pretty lucky. Although I did say that on the review show that if something to the effect of like the coaches will probably back him in again, and they have. So probably due to the fact that, from a Marshall point of view and the leadership aspects, like we've got 9 players with less than 50 games experience named in this team, 6 with 50 to 99, and Collingwood have 8 in those 2 categories combined. So where we have 15, less than 100 games played. So that's probably what the thinking is with Marshall, just having that balance of seniority and youth, whether you like it or not. If either him or Whitlock were dropped for Xavier Walsh, for example, to see what he could provide, I'm not losing any sleep over that. Equally, I'm not losing sleep on them getting another run at it, just for a bit of continuity. In regards to the height aspect, I think it's very interesting that we're actually 0.5 centimeters shorter than Collingwood on average. And I think a lot of people have looked at our team and just assumed that Collingwood have lost Brody Myercheck in the offseason to Melbourne and they're devoid of tool forward options. In actual fact, they have Tim Membry, first name escapes me, Daniel McStay, that's right.
Yep.
And then they've actually got a couple of lesser lights, maybe role players, depth players And they are Pajajski, who is a mid-season recruit, and Jack Buller, who I believe they got from Sydney, who are both touching the 195 to 200 centimetre mark. So they are also playing tool, and that would probably be the reason why we decided to keep Harrison Ram in. And it's worked out well for him and the club, playing Sydney, who play a tool forward line and have their two ruck set up, and now playing a Collingwood team who are also running a tall forward line. And I checked the weather forecast for Melbourne on Saturday night, or Saturday, and it did say that the rain was predominantly forecasted for the morning. So very much like our game against Sydney. If all goes to plan with the Bureau of Meteorology, there may be a bit of surface moisture, but by and large, it should be a good night for football from the way I interpret the forecast. So the height thing at first, yeah, we're just like, oh, okay, that's rare that you would keep, the three key position defenders and then bring in a Jack Lukosius for an Ollie Wines. But yeah, like you said, he's playing a bit of wing, which will also be interesting. But when you look at the matchups, I don't think the overall selections are too frightening.
Yeah, I agree, because I think in particular the other factor in it is Collingwood is obviously the tallness in their forward line to contend with, and just the way they move the ball is somewhat similar to, obviously not in nearly as damaging fashion as Sydney, but they're a high handball meters gain team as well. I think they're the second most in the competition behind Sydney. So there's some certain similarities to maybe how Collingwood are going to be looking to set up with their run off halfback and get through, and then obviously and how we manage that into the balls coming inside the defensive 50. But yeah, you've kind of got to go a little bit match up with what they've got. And yeah, I don't know who you would have been, like, if you wanted to get shorter in the back line. Like I just think Harrison Ram, I'd like to see, it'd been maybe while he had a couple of moments last week, I actually think he did okay, and that's obviously got the Wilson Gray nomination out of us because he showed some parts of the athletic player that people have been so high on. And you want to see if he comes in, if the horses for courses allows for it, give him a couple of games in the side. Like I think at some point he'll drop back out, and there's going to be, he's a tall young player. He's going to have some moments in and out of the side, but I think certainly when you do bring him in, particularly when injuries do bite, and you've got some tools to contend with, give him another crack. I think the structure and how we set up last week was okay, so go again.
It nearly got us a win.
So, tidy up some of the mistakes
against second.
And again, I don't think some of the major mistakes were Harrison Ram anyway. I think he obviously got a couple of calls against him. Got caught one-on-one a couple of times with Sydney's fast ball movement inside, but
that's footy.
I don't think he was deserving of being dropped. So, and I'm intrigued to see how he goes. He gets the home match against a good side. Now he gets to go to play on the MCG against a good side as well, which is going to be so. There's kind of experiential things that we're getting into some of these players as well, while still setting up a side that is capable of winning this game. Obviously, Collingwood, not Sydney. Collingwood is still a dangerous side with a lot of dangerous weapons in their side, but they're having an indifferent year as well. So I think we're setting up with a side that can go and win this game. And I think your point about the experience is important as well. You don't want to go off a cliff with just too much youth in a side. I think we talked about it earlier this year with some leadership things in a few games that, with Ollie Wines going out, and Kane Farrell's been around a long time now as well. So he's, there's some seniority there. You don't want to drop too many guys out of the side that are going to be kind of ushering along a lot of this youth. There's a balance to strike here, and I think we've struck it okay considering the injuries we've got and the players available. I don't think anyone's beaten down the door down in the SANFL. Xavier Walsh may be the most, the one that's pushing at the chances, and there's a lot of other players playing well down there, but there's no one beating down the door to knock any of these guys out, in my opinion. Again, I don't get to catch the SANFL as much, but unless I've missed anyone that's absolutely lighting it up, I just don't think there's anyone doing that to force us into any more changes than we've had.
No, you're right. No one no one playing well enough to make a change, like to make continuous or seemingly continuous change. There is some continuity that any sporting team would want, and yeah, keeping a steady hand, and the two changes that we made are somewhat forced. So, yeah, there's a delicate balance to everything.
Yeah. Another one I'm really excited about, I mean, we can just start maybe just look at the midfield briefly for a moment here while we do the last 20, 25 minutes and look at the lines. I'm really excited that Xavier Bammett retains his place, and obviously he got his home debut in the Adelaide Oval in a similar way to Harrison Ram. He's getting 2 weeks on the bounce where he's getting Adelaide Oval at home in front of the faithful, and he's getting a little bit of experience of going to the MCG when sides like Collingwood are at their best. It can be a bit of a cauldron. I'll be interested to see what it's like this week. But 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, it's still going to have a decent crowd in there, you'd think. So another good bit of experience for Bammett, and particularly Wines going out and kind of the mix changes. Obviously, he's still lower down the totem pole of CBAs and kind of possession numbers, but just interested to see kind of his continued progression. Now he's got a week in the side. He's not going to have the nerves of debuting. Will hopefully be shaken off a little bit, and he's got another week of training with the side, learning the structures and the systems a little bit more. It was interesting. I think it was Ken Hinkley who was talking. I can't remember if it was him in the commentary. Someone asked him about what you do with a new player, and they say, oh, you kind of just keep it simple. Like there's they usually come from while it's VFL or whatever, they usually come from structures that are still modern football and have a decent understanding of coming in there. So it's really just adjusting to the the unique things about the team that you're playing with. But otherwise, keep it simple. So he's gotten his chance, and now he's getting a second week in the system, having played a game and knowing his retaining his spot, which he probably knew pretty early in the week, and gets to really lock in and go across to what is a game against a rival for us in a way. And so that's probably my first point. I'm just glad that we get to see Xavier Bammett in the midfield a little bit more this week, or in and around midfield stoppage, half forward, doing what he was doing last week. That's going to be really intriguing, particularly with the likes of Ollie Wines missing. You're going to Bam Bam ability will be maybe a little bit more. We need it. We do.
Potentially, that will be interesting to see if he spends a bit more time around the ball with that magnet shift, because I think it was predominantly that high half forward that they played. And I mean, if he gets around 12 disposals and 2 shots on goal, again, I think he's probably, tick the box. And pretty rough for him to be dropped hypothetically after the one game, and it was a pretty impressive one game at home. And funnily enough, this is a pseudo home game because 3 weeks ago he was still living in Victoria. So he'll obviously have a lot of family and friends come to the game, which will be good for him, and good experience, good exposure, and just see how he fits into our system with another game under his belt, because there was a lot to like, and I look forward to seeing more. I'm really interested to see if he spends a bit more time at stoppage, or maybe they increase CBAs for some of our other existing midfielders to take on a bit more of the load. Jace Burgoyne, for example, has already been exposed to CBA this year in fleeting moments. Hypothetically, they give him more CBA time because he's the more experienced out of him and Bammett. But regardless, I'm keen to see Bam Bam players trade again, as well as the other multitude of young players that we've got representing us across the lines. So the midfield will be interesting because it's probably with the management of Pendlebury. Angus Anderson was spending a bit of time around midfield as well, although I think he was low time on ground percentage. But their midfield is, it'll be a good challenge, but it's not insurmountable. And I guess if you can go toe-to-toe with a midfield that has Grundy, Chad Warner and Isaac Heaney in it, to name a few, then I think our midfielders should be looking at this with a bit of confidence. Sure, you've got to take De Goey and Dacos and pay respect to them. Side bottom in the centre and Crisp and Lipinski on the wings is still pretty good from historical namesake and what we've known from Collingwood over the last 3 years. But they're a bit of a different team, as you alluded to earlier. They're having a bit of an indifferent year and only going so-so. So I think they're gettable. And it obviously starts in the engine room for us. And I'm pretty chuffed with how we've gone about it. Ollie Wines contributed to that against Sydney, but, it just means Drew, to name another, to fill his shoes, will probably take on more centre work after being slightly pushed out to accommodate the Joe Richards implementation. JHF will do his thing, no doubt. And Zach Butters will want to put on a show at the MCG.
Mm-hmm. He will. We do average 4 more clearances a game, which is evenly split between centre and stoppage. And that was an area that, obviously against West Coast, we got beaten at the centre a little bit. But by and large, the stoppage numbers for us have been really, really impressive the last few weeks. Really, really winning the ball there quite nicely. And then obviously the centre game last week against a very, very good Sydney side was very nice as well. So I kind of want to see Jordan Sweet continue to do what he's been doing. That as we said in the review, and go back and listen to the review of the Sydney game if you haven't already, and you have 2.5 hours up your sleeve. But I said in that one, I think it was one of Sweet's better games for the club. Really, really impressed with just the way he throws himself around now. He looks really extremely comfortable and not at all overawed by anyone in front of him now, and actually kind of looks like he thinks he can. He feels like whether what the numbers are at the end of the year will be what they are, but I think even in his head at least he says I'm one of the top ruckmen in the league, and I can go against anyone. So he kind of had a really, really good battle against Grundy, and Grundy had certainly got his wins as well. It was just a good old fashioned 2 rucks having decent games battle, but Sweet certainly isn't letting anyone down in my view. And I think if we can kind of have those numbers, or even extrapolate that out a little bit more, then we can will it be a decent chance of we'll put ourselves in position again like we did last week to win the game if we can just kind of win those clearance battles, and Sweet can have a decent game as well, and give the mids a decent opportunity. Particularly the likes of Joe Richards going in there. Obviously, horne-francis is playing some good footy, and Zach Butters is Zach Butters. So there's still some decent talent in there, even if we're going to be missing the likes of Ollie Wines. It might give Willem Drew a little bit more time to come inside again if he's take some of Ollie Wines' spots. Obviously, Richards coming in there, as you said, Jace Burgoyne. There's a decent list of players that can come in and maybe have a crack, a little squirt in the midfield and see what they can do. But I'm looking forward to seeing what some of these guys. It was interesting. Just as a side note, I was looking through some numbers before and randomly caught my eye that Jason Horne-Francis has now got more career goals than Zach Butters, 60 less games. But he's got 8 goals more now in his career at the moment. He's sitting on 80, so he's he keeps going at the rate he is. He could. I don't think
that impact discussion won't go away. And if Zach moves, if Zach leaves at the end of the year, then that topic will probably come into higher rotation in the coming years. But that is very interesting. Obviously playing more forward, but Zach spent a fair chunk of the start of his career as a forward. So that is a very, very interesting stat.
Yeah, I think Butters, without having the numbers sitting in front of me right now, I think he had 72 goals in his 153 games or 152, whatever. When did he play? You know what I mean. So that's a goal every second game, so to speak, more or less. Whereas Horne-Francis has 80 goals in his 93 games, so he's sneaking closer and closer to actually, I think, particularly this year, to kind of almost going a goal a game for his career.
He'll pass that.
Yeah.
Even when he spends more time midfield, he'll pass that 1 goal per game. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, because his kicking is getting better again, which ups and downs. There'll be yips maybe at some point, but he is I've got quite confidence in him again now with him setting up anywhere in reasonable goal scoring opportunity. So, yeah. Speaking of the forwards, quickly, we can just look at that. Defensive back. I saw a post. I didn't realize how good of a year that, and maybe I don't know if he is having a great year. I just going by the post, I saw that Billy Frampton was listed in a Smokies for All Australian squad selection post this week. I think by the official AFL account, possibly, or maybe Zero Hanger or Essential Footy, one of those main ones that does a lot of footy content. Billy Frampton for All Australian Smoky. So. What are they smoking at the Emirates? I don't know, but Billy Frampton. So I mean, Jeremy Howe. The big challenge for this backline again is going to be kind of restricting their run as well, because they're to kind of set up their rebound 50s game. Similar numbers to last week. Their rebound 50s to forward 50 transition. They get 6 or 7 more a game than us, which is very similar numbers to kind of what we're going in and facing against Sydney, but just in the forward battle as well. Another good test for Georgiades and co. But I expect Georgiades to get his 4 or 5 shots. Hopefully, he can maybe sneak up a couple more. But the big test with this group is going to be Whitlock and Marshall finding a way to just getting scoring opportunities. Because we mentioned in the review last week, it wasn't even just the fact they didn't score a goal. They didn't actually really have any opportunities to do so, apart from maybe a snap kick here or there.
That's exactly right. We've spoken about the want and need for more contributors on the scoreboard, particularly goals. So, yeah, absolutely. The focus perhaps from the supporter base will be on them to do just that. And we expect now that Berry, Durden, Cochrane, even Joe Richards, I'm obviously excluding Mitch Georgiades, that goes without saying, but we expect those guys to get on the scoreboard as well. But yeah, the focus will definitely be on Jack and Todd to turn that around, because Lukosius is named on the interchange bench. As we know, you can't take much from team selection and how it's listed, but they've got him listed on the bench. But as we know, as has been indicated, he will be playing on a wing, and that'll be a bit of an experiment. Not to say that he can't shoot for goal from a wing, and I kind of expect him to have a pop and be in positions to affect scoreboard, but he's not playing as a forward, so we can't expect him to carry that load if in fact his position has changed. So surely, like, I don't expect the avalanche to come from both of them, but surely the tide turns for at least one of them to, we saw it was in that Carlton game that Jack Whitlock had 4 shots on goal, which I think is a little bit forgotten in this run of like his lean run. He has had a lean run, that's obvious, but it was that Carlton game where he was probably one of our best performed forwards as a whole. And he kicked, 2 goals, 2 from 4 shots. So, hopefully the tide turns for one of them, and one of them can kick multiple goals, but just getting in good positions, putting the Collingwood defence under pressure, and both on the lead in contest, but then as well as that, defensive pressure to an extent when Collingwood have the ball in their hands. Because, as you said, there's no slouches. Like, Collingwood's lineup still has the names in places that you recognise, and you kind of have to pay attention to it. Their defensive line is, it's no pushover. The likes of Perryman, Perryman, who's capable of a run-with role as well, or a shutdown role, Josh Dacos, Quainer, Frampton, like you mentioned, which will be interesting to see who Frampton actually goes to, because he typically takes the bigger forwards. So perhaps, unfortunately for Todd, perhaps he may act as a decoy to allow the likes of Georgiades and Jack Whitlock to go around, because I mentioned Collingwood's forwards height. Apart from Billy Frampton, I'm not sure what their other tool stocks like just from a name point of view. So can Whitlock take advantage in the air? And if it's not raining, that may be a way to open the door for him to get back on the scorers list, the goal kickers list. But and then obviously someone who we're very familiar with, Han Dustin, the absconder, who also is listed on a bench. So who knows if we can believe that. Fun. I think he's been playing more in that role that we allowed him to do, but I think his Collingwood career so far has been predominantly, what's a way to describe it? Not managed, but put in a box and told to fit the Collingwood way. And I know we've had discussions off mic about, the grass not always being greener on the other side. And, is it all worth it to make a move home away from a club that loves you and a fan base that loves you and allows you to play a role that suits your game? But that's a discussion
to an all-Australian level.
Yeah, precisely. 2 All-Australians, see you later. So again, similar sentiments with Xavier Dersma, but that we've spoken about behind the curtain. But not for now. Dan Houston, though, we know what he can do. He's been playing more of the typical Dan Houston role this year. His stats, both his season stats and his career stats, are all above average, being his key statistics. So whatever role he's playing for Collingwood against us on the weekend, we know that he'll be able to do it with pretty good effect. So like I said, the defensive line isn't, a pushover at all.
One of the top,
much like Anila, we're going to have to pay him respect.
Yeah, one of the top pressure defenses in the comp as well. Like their defensive pressure acts are actually the number 1 team in the comp, and tackles inside 50, top 3 as well. So they're gonna do some, if it comes down to that kind of ground, that game as well. So it'll be some of that movement inside 50, getting some utilizing maybe the height differential, maybe Georgiades' athletic ability to lead his defender, lead off of his defender and just beat him for speed. Not that I want to see it in the sense of like, I don't root for injuries, but we kind of saw it against West Coast where he literally caused a player to just tear his adductor because he just had too much pace for him. So it'll be an interesting game in how it's just that inside 50 entry has to be better. Like it was, we just saw last week. While we were finding opportunities in inside 50s and marks, it just was again sometimes too shallow and didn't allow us some gold opportunity at goal, whereas Sydney were able to be a bit more damaging on that front, isolate those one-on-one. So
it was tough. Sorry to cut in. It was more at the start of the game against Sydney, good entries, poor conversion, and then as we tired, that's when we started to see the poor entries start to creep into our movement. So two teams wanting to just claw anything they can out of this season. Obviously, one of them being Port Adelaide with the most ethical tank in history. But no, we're going for the win, of course. And I think we have room on the ladder to, let's get a win. But yeah, we need to make sure, like you said, the entries and the conversion are on point to get ourselves ahead at the end of the game.
Yeah, I just want to beat them at the MCG and get a win at the MCG for this young group as well. I think it'll be important kind of psychologically going forward. Speaking just briefly, obviously, before we finish out, looking at our we kind of talked about Ram before, but it's a similar. We did talk about the forward, so not too much more needed to be talked about there. Maybe if you have any other points there to talk about, but I think we kind of just talk about Ram staying in the side, and that kind of meant we talked about the back line a little bit versus their forward line. You mentioned the height. Obviously, they've got a bit of inexperience in there, so maybe that's just where as opposed to, Charlie Kerno obviously being a very, very experienced head, and Marty's been around for a while. Logan McDonald has, while young still relatively, has been around a while. Beyond your Tim Membrys and, like I said, Pajaski's come in a couple of weeks ago. He was this year's mid-season draft, wasn't he? I think he was.
I think last week was his first game.
Yeah, so that's very young and raw. So that's like our more experienced, our experienced defenders anyway can work with that, and obviously the Lockie Schultzes and De Goey when he moves down forward can be dangerous as well. But there's a lot of danger there. But I think
Dacos has been kicking goals lately as well.
Yeah, well, Dacos
so cool. Just do
yeah.
something else, why don't you?
The man that has everything, you fucking asshole. There's a lot of weapons to keep an eye on, but I guess the way we played last week against some decent weapons in Sydney's own right, that's what buoys me with a little bit of confidence that if we can bring a similar effort to the game, that we can get a result here. There's some of the guys they've got missing. Obviously, Jamie Elliott missing. No Pendlebury to come out there and just do Pendlebury things. So I feel like he did that to us last year. And has had a habit of doing that. So there is a couple of guys, like they've got some key guys missing. No Braden Maynard out there kind of throwing his weight around. So we are by far the more inexperienced side. By the way, though, I think the average, just looking at the Wheelo ratings, average of the lineups, and our average matches are 78.2 versus their 133.7. Average age 27.8 to 24.3, so 3.5 years difference of age, and obviously 50 odd games as well. So those differences, you don't see gaps like that too much in the AFL. Like, just you and I look at these things every week, and I can say I don't see ones like that very often at all, particularly this year.
And that's what Collingwood have kind of designed their lists around is experience and age, and it's part of the criticism of them, and to see how it fares. And just from our point of view, we have enough body of evidence now. Port Adelaide has stuck it up to some good sides this year, and one characteristic is that we've rarely given up on the contest. So while they still have the experience and the both age and games, if we're going to get in front, we need to have that buffer, because experience helps in those tight games, and I desperately hope it's not another tight game that we end up on the losing side of, and outside of a complete pants shitting from us, which, look, it can happen at the MCG, as we know, against Collingwood. I expect us to compete and compete well. I think we've proven that we're a pretty good 15th place side. Like, we're not a true 15th, which contributes to all the conspiracy theories, of course. But I expect us to compete. Yeah, the forward line of Collingwood's, I think part of my pod cave here just falls apart on me mid-record, but I think part of the discourse about us being too tall and key position defenders and stuff, it's probably because fans don't rate Tim Membry and Dan McStay, but they are seasoned campaigners. I hope that's not a bad omen for those watching on YouTube. Oh, down comes the flag. So they are seasoned campaigners, so that they'll have their leading patterns down. They're both pretty good in a contest. Tim Membry I rate as an accurate shot on goal. So
seems to be when he plays us anyway, from memory.
Yeah, exactly. Even for St Kilda beforehand.
Exactly.
So, I think, this goes without saying, but much like my theme of this podcast is we got to respect it. And I'm saying that, but a Josh Carr coached team, supported by, Stuart Dew as his senior assistant and the other coaching group, from what we've seen now, I don't think they have created an environment where we do take teams lightly. There was that obvious misinterpretation after the Kangaroos game, but there's only been fleeting moments where we've looked kind of inept. So I'm looking forward to the game. Obviously, I hope to win because road wins are fun. Beating Collingwood is fun. Winning at the MCG is fun. Seeing Port win in general is just fun. It's a good time and a good reward for effort for the team as a whole, but also the young guys that need that nourishment to carry them along too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the key thing is like you just want to see some of this young group kind of get that reward for the effort because they've got a lot of I don't think there's going to be scars long term. Obviously, it's just a season of close losses, and the team will be smart and mature enough to deal with that the right way behind closed doors week to week. But you still would just like to see them get the reward of and going away for an away trip, getting a scalp like Collingwood at the G will be something that they can kind of latch onto going into the off season as well as just something to build on. Like got a bit of experience, you beat a side like Collingwood. You got to see Nick Dacos trudge off with his shoulder slump because you beat him. Like all of that stuff can be quite important. And yeah, just like as we wrap up, just looking back through some of the season's stats for both teams, and we're pretty even in a lot, but shading them in some areas. And for me, just looking at that, I go, there's been years where I've looked at this going into a Collingwood game with us and been like, shit, they smash us in contested ball. Their inside 50 numbers, their defensive numbers, whereas our defensive numbers are actually some of the best in the league. We're shading them in contested ball across the year by only 0.8 of or 0.7 of a contested possession, but that's still a lot better than the differences we're seeing with these teams in the past. And then obviously a lot of other areas are very, very similar. The disposal, it's really just the handball game that is the major difference between the sides and looking at it. And that extrapolates out to some rebound 50s. But again, we almost beat Sydney with the way Sydney played last week. So I think that's a way to kind of look at it and go, yeah, there's some hope here. So I'm excited. I'm nervous. I guess it's a diminished nerves because of the macro of how the season's going and what we're looking at. But I still want to win games like this. Like if we could beat Collingwood and Crows in the next 2 weeks, and I'd be like, yep, cool, I'm done. I'm good. I'm good for the 2026.
Yeah. Give me a cigar and my slippers. Just I'm good from here on.
What's your prediction?
My mind's telling me no. But my body, it's real head versus heart stuff for me this week because my head says we are 15th. We are a young side. We are going away to the MCG, so we'll probably lose, unfortunately. But my heart says that we've come back from the bye in pretty good shape. Our offensive game has ticked along a little bit better, albeit the conversion's still leaving a lot to be desired. And I think Collingwood are gettable. So in that regard, I say Port Adelaide by 10 points.
I like that. Nice. Well, unfortunately, a close one in your is what.
Yeah, but not a goal, not within a goal.
Yeah, true. Yeah, look, I'm looking at Wheelo ratings right now. They've got a 62.2% chance of a Collingwood by 10.4 points. So it shows that their kind of ratings their predictive ratings aren't going shooting through to the 70s or 80s. Like we saw games earlier this year that, I think Hawthorn were a 70% chance of a 35-point win and we almost beat them. And it happened, I think, the Geelong one was similar numbers. So these are just predictions, but, the fact they're brought back a little bit tighter means that some of the numbers they're looking at are like, Collingwood are still shading it, but Port Adelaide are within a shot here. And I think we've been one of those teams this year that have kind of beaten the prediction. That if you're looking at over-unders and lines, if you want to talk in betting parlance, of course, bet responsibly. I don't do much of it these days. So, but betting lines are a good way of looking at how people are thinking about it, and often a team's performance. If you see a team constantly beat the lines, it means that they're kind of beating what everyone's predicting. And I think we've done a lot of that this year, and I think we'll do that again this week. Head and heart, as you karaoke before much better than I will, so I'll refrain from singing. I'll leave Jamie to that. The talent of the podcast in many ways. But yeah, I reckon I'd love to see us just shade it. But I'd love to see 25-point win and just somehow go well. But I think this one's going to come down to a kick or two as well, and I think we might be a bit closer than your 10-point prediction. So I'm just going to say let's win this one by 3 points instead of losing.
Yeah, yes.
I'm not going to be okay.
No,
as
it's going to be
ongoing,
shitting bricks. We're going to get the win.
At some point, it's just like you can't keep getting away with it. So let's be on the other side of that for once this week. Looking forward to it. Obviously, again, 7:05 p.m. Saturday night, our time here in Adelaide. For those watching, and of course, half an hour later for those attending the match in Melbourne. Good luck to you all, to the Melbourne Creed fam that are going to be heading.
Vic supporter base, go well. Always represent Port Adelaide well. Stu and Jess, long time listeners of the pod. Yeah, hope you have a good time. If you're going, sorry, Stu, that I still haven't replied to your last message. But hope you're going. Hope the Vic supporters, put in a great shift, because they generally always do us proud, and we can always hear you on the telecast.
Yeah. I know Simon, who messages regularly, is going as well. So, yeah, good luck, Simon. And everyone else that may be going as well. Shout out to you all. That about wraps it up for the evening from us, I think. Looking forward to just trying to keep warm here, and hope everyone's staying warm and dry in this wild weather that's been hitting Adelaide a little bit this week. And enjoy your weekend. We'll be back here recording Tuesday, podcast out Wednesday of the review. Whatever happens, we'll be here.
We will be here. Go the Socceroos and go the pair.
Yeah. Fuck the US. I'm not going to say what the... Oh, yes, it's World Cup time. We're getting patriotic. All right, Carn the pair. Have a good weekend, people.
See you guys.